Time stretching or warping, which is better when you work with samples on MPC? Let's find out today. And I also have a cool life hack how to improve the quality of warping algorithm on MPC, so watch this video till the end. We go to Program Edit, I press warp, and job's done. Right here we have 90 BPM and it should play perfectly fine. Yeah, okay, with 90 it plays fine even without warping, but what if we go to 85, for example? It plays perfectly fine with the beat, of course, because it's warp. But let's listen if we go to, let's say, 80, for example. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, listen to it in solo. What about the quality of the sample? Like, let's compare it with the original without warping. And now with warping. We definitely hear we have a lot more artifacts and just sample is blurry, not the perfect quality as it was before. We're going to deal with this problem later. And if we go even to extreme 70, so it was the original 90 BPM, now it's 70 minus 20. Oh my god, this is so much. Well, listen how it just destroys. However, if we go like higher in terms of BPM, for example 100, you almost don't hear any problems with this. It's okay, this is science, this is physics, because when we go lower in terms of BPM, in terms of speed, just imagine some rubber band. When you stretch the rubber band, you see how in between the rubber bands there are some creases. Some time later it will just be torn apart. The same thing happens here. When our waveform is stretched for longer BPM, it has more artifacts because there is no artificial intelligence to add some missing elements to it. But when we speed it up, we don't almost hear any problems when going up the BPM. This is the usual case. The problem is usually when we go down, so from 90 to like 85, 80 and below, of course. And the problem especially appears when we have drums. So for example, let's add the drums right here. Original BPM 85, right here it's 85 without warping. Perfect quality with. Even within original BPM, once we hit warp, we hear how it blurs, it fades away. Listen to the transients of the drum. No way I'm using it. And if we start going down from 85 to 80, not a big difference, I mean in terms of BPM, but listen. Of course not, we're not using it. This is awful, this is terrible. And if we go even lower, 75, so from 85 to 75 minus 10 BPM. Oh. I doubt that anyone would ever use warping with drums. So to sum it up, when you warp melodic samples, that's perfectly fine if you stay within some decent range like plus minus 5, 10 BPM. But if you want to warp drums on MPC, just abandon this idea. If you use Ableton, for example, or Logic, there are special algorithms for warping. In Ableton, it's called beats, if I'm not mistaken. There are like complex pro, something in beats. This is a very good algorithm because it understands that you want to stretch or to warp breakbeat, and it keeps the transients. Right here, we don't have any algorithms. We just have our basic Pro 10, like basic and Pro 10, there is nothing else, no beats algorithm. Just drop this idea if you want to warp drum samples. I do not recommend it for sure. However, if we go to sample edit, let's copy this sample to keep the original, just in case, copy. And on this copied version, we're going to make time stretching, and this is where it gets really interesting. We put the original BPM, which is 85, and let's say we want to go to, I want to go to 75. Let's go extreme. Do it and do it. So we went from 85 to 75. Let's listen to the original. Okay, of course, it's worse than the original. Even if we look at the waveform, the edited version is lower because it fades and blurs. But anyway, it's much better than warping. But let's say I want to go back and I say that the original tempo now is 75. I want to go back to 84, for example. 84, let's hit do it and listen to what it does to the sample. Okay, maybe you do not understand yet, but let's say I just absolutely abandon my idea of going anywhere. I just say, let's go to 85 original. Remember, I copied the sample. Let's compare what it sounds like now and what it sounded before. So it's 85 again. Sounds awful. Original. This is also 85 BPM. Do you see what the problem is? Time stretching is terminal process, so it's final action. It time stretches only once. For example, if you have a drum break and if you want to go from, let's say your drum break is in 90 BPM, perfect loop from Splicer or something like this. Because this is not my typical workflow, I never use time stretching warping for the whole section of the melody. No, I always chop it first. And then if I'm not satisfied with the result, how it sounds when chopped, I add some individual warping to individual slices. You see how it blurs the sample, like time stretching is terminal. And for me, it's a big problem because when I look at the empty screen, when I just loaded up MPC and the samples, I have no freaking idea what BPM is going to be, what pitch is going to be there. So how can I, from scratch, from the start, make some adjustments to my drum break? Like I loaded up in 85 and then I foresee the future and I see myself in the next 3 hours making a beat in 97. Of course not. So what I would do is I would just chop the sample up. Again, use convert, go to, let's say, here. Something like this, I'm improvising, and then again, most probably, like this sample, I'm going to warp individually, only this. And maybe this as well. Of course, you're not satisfied with the warping process, but when you finish your project, you attach your MPC to the computer, open your MPC software, and in the settings, please check, there should be Elastic Pro algorithms. So on the MacBook or whatever computer you're using, I'm using MacBook, there is, again, Basic, Pro 10. Elastic Pro is what you should choose, and with Elastic Pro on the computer, it sounds much, much better. So when you want to export your track to then process it in Logic or somewhere else, in Ableton, I don't know, or even if you want to stay in the box in the MPC software, because I usually export my WAV files from MPC to Logic. I finish all my projects in Logic because I have recordings and so on and so forth. So please check that you have Elastic Pro, and it sounds much, much better than on standalone devices. And if you want to learn more about sampling, watch these videos right here.